Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Poker Showdown, brought to you by Party Poker. I am your host, Jaime Staples. I have an excellent show for you this week. The man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Gross is back on the podcast, my co-manager of Party Poker Team Online, Flow Show, streamer, YouTuber, podcaster, hype man. I mean, he's just a great guy to talk to. Been a big influence in my life, so I think you'll enjoy the conversation we have about the game of poker, life during and post-COVID. Life creating content. I think it was a lot of fun and you'll like it. But before that, let's talk a little bit about some of what's been happening in the poker world this week. So let's kick off by talking about Viktor Blom. Probably more well known by Isildur still, I would say. If you're not familiar with Isildur 1 and Viktor Blom, you're probably brand new to poker, but Isildur is a legend in the world of poker. At one time, played some of the highest stakes games against some of the biggest legends the game has ever seen. We're talking Phil Ivey, Patrick Antonius, Tom Dwan, at the same time in heads-up tables, right? Like, this guy was amazing when I first started playing poker, and there's like a cult of people that absolutely love everything that he does. So it's exciting that I get to start off the show talking about Isildur, Viktor Blom. This week, he actually won 3 super high roller bowl events, 1.5 million in cashes over the course of the series, which I don't know what else there is to say other than incredible that he's been able to sustain his form from before Black Friday to now, still at the top of the game, competing at the highest possible levels, and doing so after like very publicly rising super high and then sort of being on the back burner for a long time to come back and storm to some success. It's just inspiring, you know. It makes me feel good. It gives me those warm and fuzzy feelings that I always have inside me about playing poker and the myth and the legend about it. So a huge congratulations to Viktor Blom. I think he's incredible. This is a shout out, Isildur. Viktor, can you come on the podcast? That would be awesome. Let's talk on the podcast. I'd love to ask you some questions about what your career has been like and how you are today. But anyways, Isildur, what a legend. Second thing I want to talk about today is not as nice of a story, and this is about the cheating accusations that came out on Twitter this week in the poker world. So this all started with my friend Bill Perkins that came out with a tweet accusing of people cheating in private games. And there was all sorts of speculation, and Bill didn't come out with like the full story in the beginning because he was investigating exactly what had happened. And in the end, Cates was named by Dan Blazarian as the guy that was offending in the situation. He was accused of basically ghosting, so playing under someone else's name in this private game, this collection of individuals that were playing on an app at the time, under the account of a player by the name of Sina Taleb. So this is obviously bad form, right? When you play under someone's name and you're playing with a group of 30 friends and they think they're playing against Frank, the business guy, but they're actually playing against one of the best players in the world, you can see where that's a problem, and that could cost millions of dollars of equity when you're playing against one of the best, thinking you're playing against someone just playing for fun, right? So there's a lot of money on the line, and obviously this is very clearly extremely unethical. So Dan Cates came out and responded to the allegation after a day or so, saying, quote, "Well, I don't think it's fair that I've been singled out for something many were much more guilty of. I accept that as a role model for a poker community, my punishment should be disproportionate compared to normal player. I hold myself to a high standard of ethics and aspire to be devoid of inequity. But I still make mistakes, and I'm sorry for my actions. I will do my best to behave better in the future," end quote. So when I saw this, I was super disappointed. I mean, the poker world seemed very up in arms. So, like, people were really frustrated that Bill Perkins compared this to the Mike Postel situation. I did not share that sentiment in that I understood some of the games that were being played. Some of these private games are for millions of dollars sometimes. And so someone cheating someone could, in effect, be millions of dollars, as opposed to the Mike Postel situation where some of the pots were maybe 5,000 or 10,000. Now, this is affecting less people, and it's affecting very successful people in life, but nonetheless, it's something that deserves to be taken seriously, and I think Bill's feeling about it is justified in being really sort of angry and frustrated and like confused as to what's going on. So I was disappointed in people's reactions, or I struggled to empathize with them. And then when it came down to Jungle Man's response, I was even more demoralized, to be honest, and disheartened. And this is my own opinion and not one of the sponsor of this show or anyone else. But to me, I didn't feel as if Dan Cage's Jungle Man took enough responsibility for skirting the issue. Whether there was lots of other pros that were playing for other people in the game, whether this is a widespread issue, to me, it's still a cut and dry cheating, whether it's accepted or normal or not. And he's right that he is a leader of the game, and he does deserve to take the wrath of people and sort of expecting a lot of him. He bears the benefits of being one of the leaders in the game as well. And recently he's come out with a blog after the fact that sort of skirts the issue and references getting unlucky, which to me is just a complete lack of taking responsibility. And some of my other professionals out there, and a lot of people I respect and I really like what they do, have come along on the side of free jungle or Jungle Man deserves to be forgiven, or give Jungle Man a second chance, or don't be too harsh on him. And I sort of come on the other side that, there seems to be this code of ethics in poker and this gambler's word that's so important and is touted as a truth. And I think we're seeing that is held much less in regard than maybe it once was. Because to me, the apology is not enough. The act is not forgivable, at least not forgivable within a week. And in general, I'm just disappointed. So I guess I'll leave it there. Kind of a sad take, but nonetheless, I feel a little bit worse about the poker world we live in after going through this story. But you probably didn't tune into this podcast to feel crappy and to get down on the world of poker. So let's talk about something really cool, and that is Neymar Jr. made a deep run in a scoop event. Neymar, one of the most famous football or soccer players in the world, depending on where you live. So Neymar managed to finish 12th place in a $2,100 buy-in, 6max turbo progressive knockout event. He previously was sponsored by PokerStars in the past, but he won $4K plus $2,500 in bounties. The eventual winner of that event was Konstantin Masklak. So just cool to see like big mainstream sports figures playing poker casually. So pretty exciting, and congratulations, Neymar, on the deep run. And in general news, a general honor roll, because there's been so much high stakes poker going on here. I want to shout out a few spectacular successes. First of all, Justin Bonomo winning the $102,000 buy-in Super High Roller Bowl main event. He just won that for $1.7 million. An incredible score, incredible buy-in. I mean, $100,000 online events on Party Poker. I thought the series was great, and I didn't get to play any myself. It's a little bit too high for me. Nonetheless, PokerGo and Party Poker coming together to create pretty special series. I thought it was great. So congratulations to Justin Bonomo on winning the $102,000 main event. Shout out to Mike Watson as well, who won a scoop title in the 1K buy-in 6+ Hold'em event. This is his 6th scoop title. So prolific in that series over its history. Congratulations to Mike Watson. That's about it for online poker news, and hopefully it was interesting for you. But now the main event of the show, getting into the conversation with my friend Jeff Gross. He's such just an infectious personality. I really, really appreciate what Jeff does for our game. I think that everyone should know Jeff Gross. I believe that. So without further ado, enjoy the conversation with Jeff. Joining me on the podcast today, we have a guy that doesn't need any introduction. You should know him by now, but in case you don't, longtime poker pro, Twitch streamer, YouTuber, podcaster, brand new dad, co-manager of Party Poker Team Online, Mr. Flow Show himself, Jeff Gross. What's up, Jeff? Welcome to the show.
Jamie, thank you. Good to be here. Wish a little better times in the world. It seems like just one thing after another. This year's been wild, but yeah, in terms of poker and life, we press on and do our best. And obviously, poker-wise, it's been busy. So it's just a bizarre time. But yeah, it's good to be here. Good to chat. Good to catch up. I know. Also, I'd say you're one of the most busy and active people in poker, so I appreciate the time and checking in. It's always a pleasure. So let's get to it.
Cheers, man. Yeah. So it's interesting you say it's like been very busy. I was just thinking, do you think we've ever had a more busy time in online poker than we have over the last like 4 months? Has it ever been this hectic?
Uh Man, not since the heyday. I just think it's one of those things that it's going to be hard to keep up with this pace. And I actually do believe, though, there will be people that kind of refine their love for poker, that refine their online, that, hey, this exists. Hey, Party Poker has the new app software, which is incredible, right? The launch of that. So like people are going to kind of things that maybe they weren't checking out or interested in. I think there's going to be some carryover once things get back to normal. Hopefully things get back to normal, but I can't remember anything like it. Just the guarantees, the prize pools, the major series partnering with partners online. Obviously, Party Poker with WPT, it's pretty massive. You see the numbers, the guarantees, and some of the stuff that's been going on. So I
Yeah.
can't remember anything like it. And it's after Black Friday, it's definitely been the biggest kick or wave we've seen in close to a decade.
Absolutely. Just coming off like a very long Power Fest, a 2 month Power Fest series that was extended and pretty intense, and then a WPT online series. We had the Irish Open right before that. And of course, over on PokerStars, there was the Scoop Championship, which had a lot of attention on poker. So altogether, like it's been an insane couple months of poker play. Wanted to ask
Yeah.
you how did it go? What were the highlights from the grind?
Yeah, it's I think one of those things where when I look at it and look at the start and the Power Fest did kind of, it was the huge and inflate like just massive at the beginning, and then it was extended, then the WPT got in. I found myself going through, I would say, it was interesting because the first weekend basically of, I guess you'd call COVID or this whole thing, I had a final table in the 5K, and I got, I think, seventh, and I was in the middle slash short, got in kings to nines, river nine. It's like around a 30K score, but it was 250 up top. And that was kind of like, okay, great start, but a little bit like meat was left on the bone. And then a good stretch where a lot of disappointing runs, a lot of close calls or bubble final tables are just not really getting there, right? And it was like after a while, then you start looking back at it, and there were some other seconds and thirds, and things were okay. But I was definitely in a, I don't want, downswing is, it seems like such a aggressive word or negative word, but I was not peaking for a bit, and that was frustrating. And then you start thinking about those opportunities and those moments. But fortunately, in the last few weeks, I did have a big score in the big game on Party, the 129K score for third, which was cool. Fedor Holtz was battling with three-handed, and I was 13 of 15 and got third, so that was pretty cool. And that was actually from the $530 phase. So I got in off the, you buy in for 530, started 100K, bag whatever you bag. I bagged 900, and then was in that one bullet and hit that big score. So it ended up being a pretty good series, or I guess you could just say stretch overall, net. But that it was a big swing, right? Because it was definitely like very decent, and then that was a nice breath of fresh air and an exciting all around. So that was cool. And I took a little bit of time off, maybe like the last week, 10 days. I've only streamed once, and just kind of getting calibrated back to life a bit, because you know how it is with the stream, the grind. It's like you're either kind of in life or you're in stream world, and it's long
Yeah.
days. It's you're streaming, you're prepping, you're doing giveaways, you're organizing, you're getting your content on YouTube, other things, you're doing podcasts or other stuff. It's kind of hard to really give everything else the right attention and focus. So I kind of feel like you're in or you're out on streaming, and just kind of catching up sort of on the other side of that. But it's been good. I mean, this has been a very exciting time for grinding and poker, and I've had fun and definitely feel like playing well, and just kind of resetting right now, regrouping.
Right. It's an interesting point you bring up in terms of like being able to balance and take time off and figure out how you want to structure your life. And I struggle with this a little bit where, when it comes to podcasts, I might compare my podcast to your podcast or to like Dat Poker podcast or Joey's podcast or something like that has a lot of success and like has a lot of viewership, right? And then on Twitch, you can compare yourself to like Lex Feldhaus, who's crushing it with huge audiences. And on YouTube, you could compare yourself to Brad Owen and Andrew Nemi, right? Like there's all of these stars of these different avenues. So how do you maneuver in terms of how you think to yourself? Like, when do you decide I'm going to take time off, and how do you not put pressure on yourself and like beat yourself up to compare yourself to these other people?
It's tricky. I think there's so much stuff that goes into it. You start looking at the platforms, the consistency, the buy-in levels. There's all these different variables, and really, it's tricky because there is it's easy to get caught up in the numbers, and there's times where I'm sure you've had you're consistently big numbers. I've had throughout my career averaging, 4-figure numbers for viewership. And it's kind of funny. Like there's times where after being out for a while, you'll come on, and I mean, I've had days where the numbers are very, low for what I would be accustomed to, but I try not to really get caught up with it and think like, oh man, this guy's got, crazy show going. And I'm like, I just like to play. When I play poker, I love poker, but when I play online, I'm streaming pretty much like 99% of the time. Like I don't just like fire up and play a session and whatever. So I don't really I don't get too caught up in it. I also realize that a lot of times it's predicated on runs. It's very competitive, especially during this time. There's so many streamers playing, right? There's just every day people are on different time zones, starting, finishing. So if you get caught up in that, it's tricky. And I just try not to really compare. And, I've had some good shows and big numbers, and it's fun. It's obviously the energy. It's like, it's funny, right? Because like some of these stadiums, you might say they have 20,000, 40,000, a professional stadium, or 10,000 or 5,000 or something. Saying like on Twitch, you're able to actually have those type of numbers. Some people can or have. You saw the record was 57,000. I mean, you think about that.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. Like you're literally, that's more than like the Chicago. I watched the documentary, The Last Dance. I don't know if you saw it, Michael Jordan's epic. Finally got to see all of it. But I mean, I think some of those stadiums like 20, 30,000, right? So you're like talking about like imagining that, but you don't really like think about it when you're just on a camera or playing. So it's energy, it's fun. It's no question about it. Streaming on Twitch, it's more fun when there's more engagement, more action. You feel the room building, you feel the run going, the the tweets, the retweets, the energy, the chat gets more active, and it's more fun. But I don't really focus or dwell on that. And I also realize like I'm not a everyday streamer, and some of that's going to be suffer with numbers and just consistency, where people are finding other streams that are consistent every day. Again, during this COVID time, I would say I was more active than I had been the last year or two. I did have some pretty good stretches of activity, and it's fun. I love Twitch. I love people. I love poker. And, for me, it's just I really hope to do it for a long time and stay active with it. But it's, being a dad, I have a 1-year-old son, just started walking, which is pretty cool. And, it's there's other things in life as well. So it's all about timing, right place, right time. And I'm 33. I'm not a spring chicken. I think you're, 27. And
I'm 29, dude. It's coming to an end, dude. I'm almost hitting the 3-0.
Yeah, you're almost done. And Matt Staples, young buck but growing as well. It's like different things. You have to. You're engaged now. You have a serious relationship. Like it's all about time. It's all about balance, and it's just a constant battle to try to do everything the best you can, but realize that sometimes you have other things on your plate, and you can't just go and do one thing, right? You gotta stay active, and that's what we talk about. We talk about balance, talk about help, talk about trying to be the best you can be in terms of content and streaming and gaming, but also there's real life you gotta pay attention to as well.
I'm curious where your motivation comes to be a creator, because we're friends. We've been friends for a long time. So like I know in your life you've got this great family life. You have a great group of friends around you. You have the ability to play like great private games or home games, and you have business opportunities as well. So like, why do you wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I'm actually just going to stream and make YouTube videos about poker and like share the word about what poker is? Like what drives you internally to be that person?
Well, I think that's my core. That's basically what I've known and done and love for a long time. So I think part of it is understanding too that Twitch and poker and all this, like, we're sponsored by Party Poker. Very fortunate to have a great organization behind us and be a part of it, that they are looking to promote the game. We promote the game, but understanding that there's other underlying value with that, right? It's not like, oh, on this stream today, like, sure, what's my EV in playing tournaments? What is that? Maybe what is it from some affiliate revenue or other types of streaming? But really, there's a lot of what we do. If you were to look at the YouTube or Twitch numbers, it's not sexy, right? If you look at the actual Twitch revenue generated, actual YouTube revenue, but a lot of opportunity comes with that. Being able, you're kind of always on interview when you're on Twitch. Maybe someone's watching another business, like, oh, I like this guy, I like how he conducts himself, I like what message they provide or promote, and ultimately we are again fortunate to have a sponsorship in poker and by Party Poker. And I think again, it's part of it sort of snowballs. Everything you do builds. You build your brand. You build your what you're wanting to do in poker and the message you want to get across. And that doesn't happen in one day or 1 hour or one podcast, right? That's about doing what you love, putting your head down, going to work, and then kind of looking back and saying, all right, look, I've streamed X hours. I've done X and Y on this. I've done this many podcasts. I have this many YouTube videos. And it's like, again, it's like if you do it from a place of love, if you genuinely enjoy it, it's not really like work, right? Like it's fun to go back sometimes and say, oh, wow, I have hundreds of YouTube videos. Or like, oh, I remember that tournament. I remember when Jamie and I were in a 215 and you 9s to 7s and you quadded me. Yeah, I get to relive that moment.
I took that.
Yeah,
that was good.
But you won. You went on to win it. So that's good. But anyway, these are like fun things, and it's like it's all part. It's also like a journal too. So it's not even just like, oh, like this may lead to this, or you're selling whatever. It's sort of like from a personal, I guess, diary or journal, right? You're basically having a journey that you get to, no one can take away from you. You have these things that are done. And again, like YouTube videos, they take time, but we have editors, we have people that help us. It still takes time, come with the title, description, make suggestions, go back and forth, but it's fun too. Part of it's learning and growing and learning other skill sets other than just poker, which is sometimes a grind, but I find very beneficial and very interesting. I genuinely love it, and I know you do too, or else we wouldn't do it, because it is a lot of work, but it's fun. I mean, once you cross over into the value propositions and you really put some time into it, because the hardest part is starting. It's just hard. Like these guys, you see a lot of people coming into Twitch, and you see them in there, and some guys maybe you notice have talent or they're great players, great streamers, but to have a hybrid of someone who's interesting, fun, engaging, and also someone that's going to do the work and stick with it, it really narrows down quickly, because it's a big task to ask someone to start from nothing, learn it, grow it, build it, and show up with two people watching you, and you're talking to a camera and you feel silly, and sort of that whole journey is it's a process, and it's not for everyone, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know you get it, and I'm sure there's other people out there listening that are engaged in the Twitch world or the YouTube world. I mean, there's so many people asking, like, how do I get started with this? What do I need on my computer to make this work? Like, what advice would you give? And I think that first step is the hardest part. And eventually, I think the actual streaming becomes the easiest part of the job, right? Like when you're on camera, everything else dissolves away and you just get to do what you do and play poker, right? But it's
we've talked about a lot. Like in a perfect world, you'd flick go live and you'd stream and be done, and then that's it. But it's not the case. There's a lot of prep, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of understanding how the industry is changing, what works, what doesn't work. Even just the evolution of stream decks, hosting, all these different, squad mode, like these different types of things, and understanding how they work and staying in touch with all of it as well takes time, takes collaboration, takes effort, takes energy, takes money to buy the stuff, to get the best equipment, which again, it doesn't matter. You could start and stream on your whatever, right? Like that's how pretty much everyone started. If you want to wait, you have the best of everything, you won't start. But it's just kind of fun. You upgrade the mic, upgrade this, get the camera, figure it out, talk to people, collaborate. It's just it's a whole. And then there's so many new, like there's TikTok now. I don't know if you're still active with it. I haven't really got going on there, but
I'm a big fan of TikTok, man. I'm loving the TikTok nowadays. I'm not really creating much, but I like it.
Gary V's got a piece because he just pumps it so hard. He says he doesn't, but I know I see it. I get it. It makes sense. But I'm saying there's all those other platforms. What's hot? What's not? Facebook, Instagram, my gram, your gram, Telegram. His gram. It's just like there's so many grams and things, and it's like, how do you do it? What do you do? And it's not always right, and things are evolving. Like so many things I've tried don't work, or I don't like, or thought were good ideas, or you and I have both worked with different people or companies or things trying to find like what's the right way. It also really comes down to bandwidth and outsourcing, because at some point that's what we do want to do is stream and then have this stuff work, but it's not that simple. It still is a lot of work.
That's it's a complicated machine to do that.
Yes.
There's a lot of moving parts there for sure. We go through that, but I think you make a great point for Twitch, Jeff. Like I think back to when we both started, like you started streaming a few times, I don't know how you got into it. Like maybe Scott Ball saw a message or something like that. And we met at EPT Dublin, actually. I think it was the first time.
No.
Wasn't it EPT Dublin?
No, we met at the Bahamas, I think, in January. Because that must have been like February or March or something, or April. Probably
it was like a February.
With Kevin. I met you with Kevin, and I had seen your guys' streams. I think it was like 2015 even, maybe.
It was early days, man. Yeah. It was probably PCA Dublin combo there.
Okay.
And we did like a streamer meetup in Dublin, which was
Maybe it was Dublin in the following January, but I can't remember
I
now. But
think so, man. It was a streamer meetup, and we messaged you because the meetup group was the most random hodgepodge of four people. It was you and I and Tonka and Elkie. That was that was the four-person meetup, which in hindsight, like that's four very different personalities coming together to do a stream
yeah,
meetup. About 10 people came. It was fun. It was cool.
I remember that.
But then from there, we lived together, did the Streamhouse Marathon, right?
Yeah.
Streamboat 1 and 2, Ultimate
We
Sweat
still got some Virginia or Virgin Island credits, man, and
credits.
some else that's a crazy situation as well. I don't even know
Yeah.
what's going on with that.
I don't even know if we have time to tell the Streamboat
Yeah,
saga of the hurricane evacuation, but nonetheless,
great.
dude, like Twitch brings together like these crazy opportunities. And I think that's like the best aspect of it is it opens up doors to, I don't know, just like do the things you love in life. So I like that you highlight that.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's switch a little bit here. The summer in Vegas. Ever since I've known you, you're a hype show in Vegas. You're there. You're popping. You're playing tournaments.
Yeah.
It's not happening this summer. There is no World Series of Poker at the Rio. So how are you feeling about that? And like, what's your summer gonna look like now there's no Rio?
I will say this. I don't want to say lucky, but I have been segued into it a bit because actually last summer was the first summer that I didn't go out for the whole time and play everything and be basically parked there because my son was born end of April and the World Series started end of May. So I went for like 2 short trips to Vegas last year. So I missed the majority of the summer last year. So I have a little bit of a feeling on what that's like. And so I'm a little bit like one step removed from having my heart set on doing that. And actually, this year I was planning to not go to the whole thing either. Maybe do like half or just the main event and like a few other events or something. Kind of focusing on other things and some more streaming cash games and also just less travel. And my wife particularly, she's Brazilian, doesn't like the dry Vegas. It's also, I don't think, great for a baby. I mean, it's hot, and it's super hot in the summer. You're basically indoors
Yeah.
the whole time, and it's whatever. So I think family sort of shifting a bit on what my World Series would look like. Like, don't, it's fun. It is like summer camp, and I'm not saying I won't be going or doing anymore, but I've definitely my sort of it's shifted a bit, at least for these first probably couple of years, I think, of fatherhood to not be going the whole time. But I mean, the whole idea that the World Series is just not there and that's not an option. There's not like, sweats or buying pieces of people and being sort of involved in the main event is, that is bizarre. And I don't know. Honestly, it's like the fact that it's June right now is crazy. Like I feel like it was just like March, April, and May are a blur. Like it's like honestly wild when you're like, oh, it's June, and like taxes in the U.S. like they moved 3 months back when you had to file.
Yeah.
Like all these different things are like kind of different, and it just sort of all blends together. It's a weird deal. Like this year is, I mean, I don't even know. I don't know what to think. I'm just so off calibration on what's happening and where I'm at. Like it just couldn't be more of like a blend together time period. I've seen some funny memes too about Vegas. About like the dark. It's just like being in Vegas right now. Like no one knows what time it is. People are drinking all the time and losing. Like no one cares about losing money or whatever. It's just sort of like it's just kind of like schedules and routines are off.
Absolutely. Yeah. The world went for a loop, man. The world went for a loop, like just normalcy and schedule and I mean wake up times and sleep times and like all these things that people typically had. It's just gone. So I echo the sentiment, and I wonder what will be different next year about playing live poker. Like assuming that the World Series of Poker is back next summer. Do you think we're going to see any long-lasting change when it comes to live poker and the way that it's played? Like, is this potentially a decline in live poker from this result, or do you think it will kind of rebound right back to exactly normal?
I think it'll rebound to normal. I think, there's already been, I've seen some Twitter stuff or other places where people are open. I thought I saw something about in Florida in the Tampa or somewhere there was like the Hard Rock was open or somewhere was open. They had the dividers up and maybe people will be more conscious with washing their hands and sanitizer maybe at every seat or people have to wear masks. But ultimately, I think it's going to go back pretty much to normal. And if anything, people maybe have saved some money gaming, or maybe not because they've been playing online more, and maybe it's not too much different. But ultimately, I think people are really missing that live feeling, because the thing about live poker, just the chips and the whole thing, it's just like I don't think it's going anywhere. And anything sports is legal at a federal level in the U.S. I think gaming in general is becoming more popular. And with fantasy and all these other things, I just think poker is like timeless. So whether it's Parliament Omaha or Short Deck or No Limit Hold'em, I just think people love that hybrid of competition with some luck and skill, and it's just sort of the perfect game. And I think that people, as more content is put out on Twitch, YouTube, other places, and I think people are sort of that have been in it before get re-brought into it. And I just think that ultimately it'll be a lot of people's hobbies, but people will love to compete and play at live venues. I think it's not gonna shrink long term.
Right.
That'd be my guess.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Time will tell here over the next year or two. I wanted to ask you a strategy question as well, because I know we have a lot of newer poker players and players that are aspiring to get to new heights in their game and reach new levels. So wanted to ask you from a strategy perspective, what are the sorts of things that you're working on in your own game at the moment, and where do you maybe see an aspect where you need to improve to keep up with like the Lenas and the C. Darwins and the Fader Holts of the world?
Yeah, I think two parts. One would be if you're new to the game and learning, it's going to be something that you want to make sure you have the fundamentals down. So I think one of the biggest things to do is get one of the training programs. Obviously, you and I rep one strongly, but there's a lot of good options out there, and it's one of those things that you want to be able to have the fundamentals down. You want to know what hands to open from what positions, which is as a generic start. Of course, you can adjust to your table based on how the table's playing tight or loose, but you want to make sure you're doing some of the fundamentals to lock in. Because if you don't have fundamentals down, like, I'm in under the gun, 8-handed, what hand should I be looking to play at a normal table distribution of how people are playing? I think that's something you need to make sure you have down. You want to know, like, push fold ranges, right? Well, 10 to 20 blinds. These are things that intuitively you're gonna get better at. You're gonna figure out little tricks and nuances and how to play exploitatively, right? Versus GTO. You're gonna kind of learn these things at the table. The stuff that is sort of, I don't like using the word solved because it sounds so intense, but like the stuff that's sort of suggested, recommended, the baseline of the game and strategy, you need to understand that. And I think that's something as a beginning player, if you just hop into the mix, you can do yourself you're doing yourself an injustice if you don't just get the basics down, right? You don't take a little bit of time and understand like what is right and what is wrong. So that would be from a maybe beginner perspective, something that you could work on, and it's readily available information. In terms of what I'm working on personally, and I think something that we've talked about too, is just like, I don't want to make an excuse, but I think part of like being a Twitch streamer, a lot of the big score or the big runs and viewerships are predicated on deep runs. You want to stay alive. Like if you're in the party million and there's 100 left, like you could, it's exciting. Or Matt had the 93 score for third. So it's like a spot where it's like, all right, this guy opens, I got 15 blinds, I have queen jack suited, I'm in the cutoff, middle position opens, this guy's a little out of line. Like you should maybe be shoving, right? It's like, all right, this is a good spot to shove, and this and that, but maybe you kind of lean a little bit on caution, or you're passing some higher variance spots. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned, or I'm kind of working on too, is that it makes so much more sense to go for that first, second, or third, and like get the 30th or 40th or 20th more often than try to get like 10th through 15th always. Because if you're always like 13 of 15, 9 of 11, 10 of 12, it's hard. It really is hard to pull it out, even though, anything can happen, and there's something to be said about being alive in the tournament and being deep and giving yourself a chance. But I think that's something that I'm just trying to, I've always had a little more on the cautious approach and playing more, valuing tournament life. So I think that's something, looking for more spots to be aggressive, even finding some more 25, 30 blind jams with like low pairs in certain positions against opens that are higher variance, but you're going to take the pot down a lot, or get in a flip, or be 4-1 behind and smoke a 2-outer, and just be in there to win it. So I think like that in particular, finding those type of spots are interesting. Also kind of finding some like check raise, some bluffs with like backdoor board textures where it maybe not intuitively looks like such a good place to bluff or go do something, but finding some other spots that, that are interesting to maybe find some bluffs. So I think
Right.
that's what I'm particularly trying to always work into my game.
I like it. Jeff, I have a theory. I really think it stems some from your FOMO, man. Because I
I
know
do have
your
FOMO.
FOMO levels are very high compared to the average population. Like, don't want to miss out. Fear of missing out. I see it when you're down to 15. I can see it processing. Like, I do not want to miss this final table. I see it.
Right.
I can
You
see it in your
don't.
eyes, man. I think there's
True.
some FOMO there,
Well,
boys.
I will say, speaking of FOMO, because it sort of sounds like a joke, but it's a real thing for sure. I mean, whether you want to call it fear of missing out or just sort of like that mentality, the the reality is like COVID sort of, at least from a social and like level, sort of quelled that because at least up until now stuff's starting to open up a little. People are doing some things. Like I just wasn't so worried about, oh, this is going on, or even like weddings or
Mm.
parties or people's 30th, 40th, 20, whatever. These things are like not happening. So it's not like, oh, like, do I, do you do that? Do you go here? Oh, this tournament's happening. There's a live event. It's just sort of like, nope, everyone's locked in. I know no one's. I don't have to worry what one of my best friends is going or doing. It's just like, no, they're in their house. Like,
Yeah.
all right, that's
Yeah.
cool. Like I'm good. Everything's okay. Like that's, I don't need to. So that at least from that perspective, it has been sort of nice to not really have to. The FOMO's been kind of I don't have to check. I don't need to know what's going on everywhere. I can go to sleep earlier. I'm not missing something too exciting. But
Yeah.
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 Hopefully things open back up and get organized here soon. But I don't know, man. World's chaotic right now. Like unfortunately, the COVID seems to take a back seat to there's been the George Floyd, the stuff. I mean, it's just been pandemonium. I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely insanity. So it's hard to know. And like it's almost like people are not really. It's just like one thing on another. It almost seems like make believe, like, and it just seems like everything's kind of um, sort of snowballing
It's
together, and
not very
it's a bit
comfortable right now,
hectic.
is it? There's so much variation and change, and rightfully so in the protest situation.
Yeah.
COVID obviously just out of left field. No one expected it.
Yep.
Maybe a few predicted, but it took the world by storm, really. So,
Yep.
fingers crossed that the second half of the year is calmer and we can just be normal for a bit. That would be great. If we could
Yeah.
revert to 2019 levels of normal, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Like that.
Two quick questions from the audience here, Jeff. I know we're running out of time, but first of all, question from Adriano Vincentini Alves, who asked on Twitter, how does big staking deals work in big cash games? Now, I'm going to open this up generally because I know you play or you have played in the past some private games and like big cash games and stuff. And it's a world that I think a lot of newer poker players don't have any insight into as to how it works. Like, how does it work with staking and like pieces and people playing in these big private home games where the amount of money that is exchanging is a lot? So can you speak to the experience of how that works with recreational players and professional players that might have to sell action in some of those games?
Yeah. Well, two ways. Sometimes it's you want to sell action. Sometimes like a game may request you to sell action if you're a winning player. I mean that can happen, or they want to take a piece. But actually, if in a home game and a private game, it's nice to actually sell a piece because, listen, there's crazy shit in the world going on, right? Like with games, you saw the apostle stuff. You see there's some crazy, Bill, one of my closest friends, and very well, and Bill, done the Ultimate Sweat with and chat, and we all keep in touch, and there's just some wild stuff going on. So it's sometimes nice to know, like, oh, like the person sort of organizing running a game wants to have a piece, like, or you might offer, like, hey, will you buy a piece? Because then it sort of shows like good faith, right? Like if you sold a piece in the game, it's like, well, that means like that makes more sense that there's nothing like not. I don't want to say shady or something ill will in the game. But yeah, generally in like massive games, you might play, let's say if your normal stakes are 5-10 or something, or 10-20, and you're playing 100, 200, like imagine you have a losing session. It's almost impossible to go back to like, you lose 100 or 200 grand. You're going to go back and play where you're winning or losing like 1,000 or two a day. It doesn't really make sense. So, you want to kind of calibrate. Of course you can take a shot here and there. But generally, people do sell or swap or have some. Of course, the crushers or the guys with all the money, the business guys, they're not selling. No, they're in theory the action of the game, or they're there and they don't really mind if they win or lose a bit. But typically in large tournaments and or cash games, pros are selling pieces or have some swaps or have some sort of hedge in the game. So that's very typical. And in tournaments, there's some markups associated, obviously, on Stake Kings. You're aware of. I've used it, you've used it, or are using it, and there's some markup maybe in a tournament depending on the field and the structure. With cash games, it's not really a markup. You're not generally like, maybe you get put in on like an 80-20 free roll, or there's some sort of arrangement in certain instances, but generally cash games are done at fair value, and you sell a piece to one or two people, and it's definitely typical that not everyone in every big high stakes cash game has 100% of themselves, for sure.
Right makes sense. Question from Type or Turbond on Twitter, who asks, this is a curveball. If you quit poker, what would you do?
Well, I love business development projects, so I think I would just really dive in on a project or two full force that I'm already kind of working on or feel passionately about. But if you had to say like a specific job or a genre, I like to be a sports agent. I just think it's cool. Like I love sports. I love people. I love freaking out. Sorry about that. I love negotiations. So it's like, to me, it'd be fun. I just think it would be fun to be in that world and kind of like, go through that. I've thought about it a few times, but never really went that route. Actually, I've had discussions, and I actually almost took an internship at Octagon with Peter Carlisle, who is Michael Phelps' agent, who I was my roommate for 7 years. And in the period of time where I was like, Black Friday happened around, April 2011 or 12 now, I think 11. I mean, I remember that crossed my mind. Like, what am I going to do? That would be interesting, and was looking into maybe going into that route. So that was like the one thing I kind of have had in the back of my mind or considered. Like, I don't know, maybe I open an agency. I'm 33. It's not impossible. Maybe one day have like a flow show agency or something and do some of that. I know we talked about it before. I was thinking about for poker even, like sort of the Twitch, that type of stuff. But like really, I then realized that's not really what I want to do, because if I want to stream, do YouTube, do other things, being an agent is essentially doing all of the sort of wheeling and dealing and negotiation and other, right? So it's like sort of counterintuitive. Like if I can barely keep up with my own stuff in terms of what I have going on, I want to now do this for 10 people. Which it would be kind of fun, but you would just have to do that and just say, all right, I'm not doing anything else. But that would be my other, I guess, choice. I think it would just be fun to wheel and deal every day. I
think there's something there. Hopefully someone at Party Poker is watching this. I mean, hey, maybe we need to send Jeff Gross out there into the wild and just see who he can pull in. Maybe we can get some big names on Party Poker. I mean, could be a thing. I love it.
Well, that party's already made. They got Kevin Hart. They've made some other big moves and some people. But yeah, maybe on the next wave, it's popular. Poker's blowing up right now. So if we need to get in the trenches,
recruiter, man. You're a celebrity recruiter for Party Poker. I'm calling it now, man.
I don't hate it.
Jeff, I really appreciate you taking the time. I mean, we've been friends for a long time. I am inspired by the flow that you live life with, man. I mean, you're just in action all the time. You give everything 100%. It really hypes me up, and I appreciate it, dude. So would love to have you back again in the future. But for now, thanks so much.
I appreciate it, man. Always a pleasure. Keep killing it, and yeah, let's keep our podcast going, man. It's fun. I enjoy it, and we'll have you back on, and I'd love to be back as well. So we'll chat soon, man. Thanks again, and great stuff as always.
Big thanks to Jeff for taking the time this week. Now, before I let you all go, we have a competition here on the podcast where one of you can win a $215 Party Poker Million ticket. All you have to do is enter this skill testing question on Twitter using the hashtag JSPokerHero. Hashtag JSPokerHero. Now, last week, Ray7 was the closest to guessing the prize pool of the Party Poker Million. So he won a $215 Party Poker Million entry ticket. Good luck, my friend. Represent the podcast strong and get a second place. Okay? I'm getting the win. This week's competition. What is the maximum number of clubs a player can set up in Party Poker's club games? Visit partypoker.com/clubgames to find out more and post your answer using hashtag JS Poker Hero. Well, that sounded very official and ad-like, but let me break this down for you, okay? What are clubs games? They're a brand new feature on Party Poker where you can open up a club and you can invite your friends and you can all play in a cash game together. And it doesn't appear in the global player pool with everyone else. It's just you and your friends or whoever you accept into the club. So it's a really fun way to connect with people around the world in a spot and in a time where it's, kind of difficult to connect with people. So I love club games. I've been making the equivalent of club games for several years on my Twitch stream, and now that it's here on Party Poker, I'm really excited to get it started. So yeah, go ahead and guess. What's the maximum number of clubs a player can set up in Party Poker's club game? There's going to be a random winner chosen out of the correct choices. Thank you, everyone, for checking out the show this week. I hope you enjoyed it and you loved the conversation. I'd love to hear what you think as well, so continue the conversation. You can tweet me at Jaime Staples, Jaime. You can follow me on Twitch, PokerStaples, or on YouTube, PokerStaples. I make lots of poker content, and I'd love to just connect with you all and chat. This podcast is sort of a project I do once a week, but I don't necessarily get to talk to the audience as much as I'm used to when I'm live streaming or I'm making videos, so I'd love to hear from you. If you're listening to this on iTunes, make sure to drop a rating and a review on the show. That would be great. Spotify, you just hang out and do your thing. YouTube, like, comment, subscribe is always appreciated. Thanks, everyone, for watching. But until next week, we'll see you later.